I pulled into Miller's truck stop as the sun set behind Pennsylvania hills, desperately needing this job after losing my warehouse position in Pittsburgh. The gravel crunched under my tires as I parked near the employee entrance, taking a deep breath before stepping out of my car. This wasn't exactly where I'd planned to end up at 28, but rent didn't pay itself. The neon open sign buzzed and flickered as I walked through the glass doors. The place smelled like coffee and cleaning products, not unpleasant, just unmistakably a truck stop. A few customers browsed the snack aisles while a tired-looking cashier counted out change for a burly trucker. "You must be Ricky," a voice called from behind the counter. The man who approached me had to be Philip Maldonado. His ID badge confirmed it, but what struck me most were his eyes, blue, alert, but surrounded by deep creases that aged him beyond what I guessed was his mid-40s. His salt and pepper hair was thinning on top, and he carried himself with the slight stoop of someone who'd been standing behind counters for decades. "Yes, sir, Ricky Navarro," I said, extending my hand. Philip's grip was firm as he shook it. "Good timing. Let me show you around before the evening rush hits." He led me behind the counter first, pointing out the register. Pretty straightforward system. Touchscreen menu. Item codes are listed here if something won't scan. He tapped a laminated sheet taped beside the monitor. "Cash goes in this drawer. Credit card slips in this tray. We balance at the end of every shift." I nodded, taking mental notes as we moved through the small convenience store. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a harsh white glow that made the colorful chip bags and candy wrappers stand out like they were under a blacklight. "Restocking is simple," Philip continued, leading me to a small storage room. "Inventory sheets are on this clipboard. Mark what you take out, what needs to be ordered. Deliveries come Tuesday and Friday mornings." We stepped back out as a group of truckers walked in, their voices echoing in the small space. Philip nodded at them with practiced familiarity before turning to a bank of security monitors mounted on the wall behind the counter. "These show you all the gas pumps. Most folks pay at the pump, but you'll get some cash customers. If someone drives off without paying, there's a form to fill out. But don't chase anyone. Not worth it." I watched the screens as a pickup pulled up to a diesel pump. "Makes sense." Philip rubbed his face, that tiredness showing through again. "Night shift is mostly quiet. You'll get truckers stopping for coffee, locals grabbing beer before the cutoff time, maybe some travelers needing directions. Between customers, just keep the place clean and stocked." We walked the aisles as he pointed out where everything belonged. The coffee station needed regular attention, he explained. Fresh pots every 2 hours, even during the night. Wipe down the counters, restock cups and lids. "So I'll be working with you tonight?" I asked as we completed our loop back to the register. Philip shook his head. "I've got some paperwork to finish up, but I'll be leaving you on your own for this first overnight shift. You seem like you can handle it." He must have noticed my expression change because he quickly added, "I'm just a phone call away if anything comes up. Got my number on the emergency contact list by the phone." I tried not to show my nervousness. "Yeah, I can handle it. Seems straightforward enough." "It is," Philip assured me. "Most nights you'll be bored out of your mind. That's why we keep the TV behind the counter." He pointed to a small flat screen mounted in the corner. "Just keep the volume low." For the next hour, I shadowed Philip as he rang up customers, showing me how to process lottery tickets and money orders. He had an easy way with the regulars, calling many by name. I did my best to absorb everything, knowing I'd be on my own soon. "One last thing," Philip said, leading me to a small break room with a mini fridge and microwave. "You get a 30-minute break per shift. Take it when it's slow, and the coffee's free for employees." He smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. "You'll need it." By 10 o'clock, Philip had grabbed his jacket and was heading for the door. "Call if you need anything, I mean it." "Will do," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "Have a good night." After he left, I busied myself with tasks to keep my mind occupied. I restocked the coolers, wiped down the coffee station, and straightened the candy display. The stream of customers slowed to a trickle as the night progressed. By 11:30, the only sounds were the hum of the refrigerators and the quiet drone of a late-night talk show on the TV. Midnight rolled around, and I found myself alone in the store. The bright lights and empty aisles gave the place an eerie quality. I shook off the feeling and grabbed a clipboard with a restocking checklist. The coffee station needed attention, filters were running low, and the creamer dispenser was nearly empty. I was refilling the sugar packets when I heard it, a car engine making a sound no healthy engine should make. The sputtering, choking noise grew louder, followed by a hiss that could only be an overheated radiator. Looking up from my task, I moved to the front window. Through the glass, I spotted an older sedan, maybe a Buick from the early 2000s, pulling into the lot. Steam billowed from under the hood like a small fog machine, illuminated in the harsh parking lot lights. The car lurched to a stop near the air pump, and the engine died with what sounded like a final gasp. The driver's door opened slowly and a man climbed out. He was wearing a worn brown jacket that had seen better days, his shoulders hunched as he stared at his steaming vehicle. Even from inside, I could read the body language, the way his hands went to his head, then dropped to his sides in defeat. He looked completely helpless, standing there in the empty parking lot. I hesitated, wondering if I should go out and offer assistance. Philip hadn't mentioned anything about helping stranded motorists, but it seemed like the decent thing to do. The man circled his car, opening the hood and jumping back as a fresh cloud of steam escaped. Setting down my clipboard, I made my decision. The poor guy clearly needed help, and I wasn't about to ignore someone in trouble on my first night. I grabbed a water bottle and headed outside to assist the stranded motorist. The night air felt cool against my face after the controlled climate of the store. The parking lot was quiet, except for the occasional whoosh of a car passing on the nearby highway. The man stood by his open hood, looking lost as he stared at the steaming engine. He glanced up as I approached, relief washing over his tired features. "Car trouble?" I asked, holding out the water bottle. He wiped his hands on his worn jacket before accepting it. "Yeah, radiator overheated, I think." His voice was soft, almost hesitant. "Name's Trevor. Trevor Morrison." "Ricky," I replied. "I work here." Trevor unscrewed the cap and carefully poured some water into the radiator opening, jumping back slightly as it hissed and steamed on contact with the hot metal. "Better let it cool down more first," I suggested. "I can call a tow truck if you need one. We have a list of local services inside." Trevor shook his head quickly. No, that won't be necessary." He gestured at the engine. "Just needs to cool down. I'll be fine once it does." "You sure? It's pretty late to be stuck out here." "I'm sure." He gave me a small smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Thank you for the water. Very kind of you." I nodded, not entirely convinced. "Well, I'll be inside if you change your mind." Back at the counter, I kept an eye on Trevor through the security monitors. He continued pouring small amounts of water into the radiator, testing the heat with cautious movements of his hand above the engine. The camera angle wasn't great, but I could see him pacing around his car, checking his watch, and occasionally looking toward the store. I restocked a few items and helped a trucker who came in for coffee, but my attention kept drifting to the monitor. Trevor seemed agitated, constantly looking over his shoulder at the dark edges of the parking lot. About 20 minutes later, I looked at the screen and noticed something odd. Trevor's car was still there, hood open, but Trevor himself was nowhere in sight. I scanned all the camera feeds but couldn't spot him anywhere in the parking lot. Maybe he'd walked to the restrooms on the side of the building? But those were inside and he hadn't come through the front door. I decided to check outside. The night had grown quieter, with fewer cars passing on the highway. Trevor's Buick sat exactly as before, hood up, but its owner had vanished. The water bottle I'd given him was on the ground near the front tire, empty. "Trevor?" I called out, my voice sounding strangely loud in the empty lot. "Mr. Morrison?" No answer. I walked around the building, checking between the dumpsters and along the side walls. Nothing. I returned to his car and peered inside. The doors were locked, and on the passenger seat I could clearly see a wallet, its leather worn at the edges. Why would he leave his wallet and disappear? "Trevor," I called again, louder this time. My voice echoed back from the dark tree line beyond the lot. The whole situation felt wrong. People don't just vanish, especially not leaving their car and wallet behind. I completed another circuit of the building and parking lot, checking every shadow and corner, but found no trace of the man. Back inside, I considered calling the police, but hesitated. What would I say? A customer's car overheated, and now I can't find him. They'd probably think he just walked to a nearby business or got a ride with someone. Still, the incident left me uneasy. I kept glancing at the security monitors throughout my shift, half expecting to see Trevor reappear as mysteriously as he'd vanished. The hours crept by slowly. I served the occasional customer, mostly truckers stopping for coffee or snacks. Each time the door opened, I looked up expecting to see Trevor, but it was never him. Around 2 a.m, during a particularly quiet stretch with no customers, the store phone rang. The sudden noise made me jump. I picked up the receiver. "Miller's Truck Stop, how can I help you?" At first, I heard nothing but soft breathing. Then a young woman's voice came through, barely above a whisper. "Hello? Is someone there? Please help me." "This is Miller's Truck Stop." "Who am I speaking with?" I asked, pressing the phone closer to my ear to hear her better. "My name is Reese Riley." Her voice trembled. "I'm trapped. I don't know exactly where, but I can see your lights from here." I straightened up, immediately concerned. "Are you hurt? Do you need me to call an ambulance?" "No police, no ambulance," she said quickly, her voice rising slightly before dropping back to a whisper. "They'll hear me. I just need help getting out of here." "Where are you exactly?" I asked, moving to the front window to scan the darkness beyond the parking lot. "What can you see around you?" "Trees, lots of trees. But I can see your sign, the big Miller's sign with the red letters." She paused, and I heard what sounded like rustling. "Please, I don't have much time. The line went dead with a click. "Hello, Reese?" I said into the receiver. "Are you there?" Nothing but dial tone. I hung up and immediately tried to *69 to call back, but got an error message. I checked the caller ID display, but it showed unknown number. I went to the window again, staring out at the dark tree line surrounding the truck stop. The red neon of our sign cast an eerie glow over the empty parking lot. Trevor's car still sat there, abandoned. Now a missing man and a mysterious phone call, all in my first night on the job. I returned to the counter, unsettled and alert, wondering what else this night might bring. I felt uneasy after Reese's call. The empty store seemed different now, like the shadows in the corners had grown deeper and the fluorescent lights overhead couldn't quite push them back. I kept glancing at the phone on the counter, half expecting it to ring again, half hoping it wouldn't. I tried to focus on my tasks. I wiped down the coffee station again, even though it was already clean. I straightened the candy bars in their display, making sure all the labels faced forward. I checked the security monitors repeatedly, scanning for any sign of Trevor Morrison or his abandoned Buick still sitting in the parking lot with its hood up. The clock on the wall ticked past 3 a.m. The store radio played some soft rock song I barely recognized, the volume so low it was almost subliminal. Outside, the parking lot lights cast pools of yellow on the empty asphalt. No cars had pulled in for at least 40 minutes. I was restocking the cigarette display behind the counter when the phone rang again. The sound made me jump, my hand knocking over a stack of Marlboro boxes. I stared at the phone as it rang a second time, then a third. I didn't want to answer it. I knew who it would be. On the fourth ring, I picked up the receiver. "Miller's Truck Stop. Help me." It was Reese again, her voice even more desperate than before. "Please, you have to help me." "Where are you calling from?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "He's looking for me," she whispered, her words tumbling out faster. "I can see him through the trees. He's tall with a dark coat. He keeps circling around." "Who is? Where exactly are you?" "I'm still in the woods, but I'm closer now." Her voice shook. "I can see your store, the lights. Please, I need to get inside before he finds me." I looked out the front windows at the dark tree line beyond the parking lot. Could she really be out there? "I should call someone for you. The police." "No!" The word was sharp, almost a hiss. "No police. He'll hear you call them. He'll find me first." There was rustling on the line, like she was moving through underbrush. "Please, just unlock the back door, just for a minute. I can slip in and hide until morning." The back door. Something about her request made the hair on my arms stand up. "I can't do that. Store policy. I'm not supposed to unlock any doors during my shift." "Please," she begged. "I don't have much time. He's getting closer." I gripped the phone tighter. "Where are you calling from? Do you have a cell phone?" More rustling sounds came through the line, followed by what might have been a sob. "He's coming. I can see him. Please." The line went dead. I held the receiver to my ear for several seconds, listening to the empty dial tone before slowly hanging up. My hand was sweaty against the plastic. I looked at the caller ID display. Unknown number, just like before. I walked to the front of the store and pressed my face against the glass, straining to see into the darkness beyond the parking lot. The trees were just a black mass against the night sky. If someone was out there, I couldn't see them. I returned to the counter and considered my options. Should I call the police anyway? What would I tell them? That a mysterious woman kept calling, claiming she was being hunted in the woods? That she wouldn't say where she was calling from, but could somehow see the store? They'd think I was making it up, or worse, that I was involved in something shady. I decided to wait. Maybe she'd call back with more information. Maybe she'd find her way to the store's front entrance where I could see her through the glass before letting her in. The next couple of hours passed slowly. I served a few early morning truckers who stopped for coffee and snacks. I continued my routine tasks, restocking shelves and wiping down counters, but my mind kept returning to Reese's calls and Trevor's disappearance. Something wasn't right about this place. Around 5:30, just as the sky was beginning to lighten from pitch black to deep blue, the front door chimed. I looked up from where I was kneeling to restock the bottom shelf of energy drinks. A man stood just inside the entrance, tall and unnaturally thin in a dark coat that reached almost to his knees. His black hair was slicked back from a pale, angular face. He stood perfectly still for a moment, gray eyes scanning the store before landing on me. I stood up quickly, brushing off my hands on my jeans. "Good morning. Can I help you with something?" The man walked toward the counter with long, measured steps. Up close, I noticed how smooth his skin was, almost like it had been polished. His eyes rarely blinked. "I hope so," he said. His voice was precisely modulated, each word carefully formed. "My name is Samuel Reed." He glanced around nervously, though something about the movement seemed practiced rather than genuine. "My cell phone has died and I need to make an urgent call. May I use your store phone?" A chill ran through me. First Trevor disappears, then Reese calls about a tall man in a dark coat looking for her, and now this stranger wants to use our phone? The timing felt too coincidental. "I'm sorry," I said, the lie coming easily. "Our phone is broken, has been since earlier tonight." Samuel stared at me, his gray eyes unblinking. "Broken? That's unfortunate." He paused, his long fingers tapping once, twice on the counter. "Are you certain? It's quite important." "Yeah, sorry. We've called the repair company, but they won't be out until tomorrow." I gestured vaguely toward the back office. Something wrong with the line. Samuel continued staring at me. The silence stretched uncomfortably long. I noticed his fingers were unusually long, with perfectly manicured nails. There was something off about the way he stood, too, like he was consciously thinking about how to position his body. "Perhaps there's another phone nearby I could use?" he finally asked. "The next gas station is about 15 miles down the highway," I said. "They should be open." Samuel's lips pressed into a thin line. "I see." He looked around the store once more, his gaze lingering on the hallway that led to the back rooms. "And you're certain your phone cannot be used? Not even for one brief call?" "Completely dead," I insisted, fighting the urge to step back from the counter. "Sorry, I can't help you." Samuel stared at me for another long moment before nodding slightly. "Very well. Thank you for your time." He turned and walked back toward the entrance, moving with that same measured pace. He didn't look at any of the merchandise. He didn't buy anything. He simply left, the door chiming as it closed behind him. I watched through the windows as he walked across the parking lot to a black sedan I hadn't noticed earlier. It was parked at the very edge of the lot, half hidden in shadow. He got in and sat there for several minutes without starting the engine, just staring at the store. Finally, the car's headlights came on, and he drove away, turning onto the highway and disappearing from view. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Something about Samuel Reed had felt wrong, dangerous even. I was glad he was gone. The rest of my shift passed without incident. The sky lightened further, turning from deep blue to the soft gray of early dawn. More customers came in, mostly truckers starting their day with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. The normal rhythm of the store helped calm my nerves. By 6:15, I was counting down the minutes until Philip would arrive to relieve me. I'd started gathering my things and was heading toward the back to check the storage room inventory one last time when I heard it. A scratching sound, faint but distinct, coming from behind the storage room door. I stopped in the hallway, listening. The sound came again, like something dragging across the floor. Then a shuffling noise, as if someone was moving boxes around. I frowned. No one should be in there. I was the only employee on duty and the door had been closed all night. "Hello?" I called out, taking a step closer to the door. "Is someone in there?" The noises stopped immediately. The silence that followed was absolute, like even the air had gone still. I stood frozen in the hallway, straining to hear anything. After several seconds, the sounds resumed. A soft scraping, then what sounded like a box being dragged across the floor. But there was something else now, too. Voices. Or what I thought might be voices, so quiet and muffled I couldn't make out any words. Just a whispering sound, like multiple people having a hushed conversation. I took another step toward the door, my hand reaching for the handle. I needed to check. It was my job to make sure everything was secure before Philip arrived. My fingers were inches from the handle when I heard a name spoken clearly among the whispers. "Reese." I pulled my hand back as if the door handle had burned me. The whispers continued, too low to make out any more words, but that one had been unmistakable. I backed away from the door, my heart pounding. Whatever was happening in the storage room, I suddenly wanted no part of it. Philip would be here soon. I could tell him about the noises, let him check it out. That seemed like the safest option. I retreated to the front counter, keeping my eyes on the hallway leading to the storage room door. The scratching and shuffling continued, along with the whispers, but they didn't grow louder or come any closer. They just went on, a constant reminder that something wasn't right at Miller's truck stop. I was reaching for the storage room door handle when Philip showed up. His heavy footsteps came quick down the hallway behind me, and before I could turn the handle, his hand grabbed my shoulder and pulled me back. "Don't open that door," he said, his voice low but urgent. He didn't wait for my response, just steered me away from the storage room and back toward the front counter, keeping his hand firmly on my shoulder the whole way. When we reached the counter, he let go and walked around to face me. The fluorescent lights made the lines in his face look deeper than they had yesterday. His eyes moved from the hallway back to me, and he took a deep breath. "Tell me everything that happened tonight," he said. "Every detail, no matter how small or strange it seems." I leaned against the counter, suddenly aware of how tired I felt. It started with a guy whose car broke down, Trevor Morrison. His radiator was overheating, so I took him some water. Philip's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. He was out there for a while, then just disappeared. His car's still in the lot with the hood up. I looked everywhere for him, but he was gone. His wallet's still sitting on the passenger seat. Philip nodded like this made perfect sense. Then around 2, I got a phone call from a girl named Reese Riley. She said she was trapped somewhere near the store, that she could see our sign. She was whispering, scared of someone finding her. When I offered to call for help, she refused. Then the call cut off. Philip's eyes narrowed. Did she call again? Yeah, about an hour later. She said someone was hunting her, a tall man in a dark coat. She wanted me to unlock the back door to let her in. Did you? No. I told her I couldn't break store policy. Something that might have been relief flickered across Philip's face. Then this guy came in around 5:30. Samuel Reed, tall, thin, weird eyes that hardly blinked. He wanted to use our phone, said his cell was dead. I lied and told him it was broken. Philip's shoulders relaxed slightly. And? He left, but he sat in his car watching the store for a while before he drove off. I paused, then added, and just before you got here, I heard noises from the storage room. Scratching, whispering. I heard them say, "Reese." Philip rubbed his hand over his face. He looked tired in a way that went beyond a long day or missed sleep, the kind of tired that comes from carrying something heavy for too long. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was creased from being folded and unfolded many times, the edges worn soft. He held it for a moment, then handed it to me. "These are the rules," he said. "Every night shift employee needs to follow them, to the letter, no exceptions." I took the paper, feeling the weight of it in my hands. It seemed too ordinary to contain anything important. Just a regular sheet of printer paper folded in thirds. "Rules for what?" I asked. "For surviving your shifts here." I unfolded the paper. At the top, in bold letters, Miller's Truck Stop, night shift rules. Below that was a numbered list. My eyes fixed on the first rule. 1. Do not help anyone outside the store. I looked up at Philip, who was watching me closely. "You made your first mistake when you helped Trevor Morrison with that water," he said. "The man who disappeared wasn't human." I felt like someone had dumped ice water down my back. "What do you mean, wasn't human?" Exactly what I said. Philip's voice was flat, matter of fact. The thing calling itself Trevor Morrison wasn't a person, and when you help these entities, you invite worse encounters. I looked down at the paper again, reading the first rule over and over. My mind tried to reject what Philip was saying, to find some rational explanation, but I'd seen Trevor vanish. I'd heard those voices in the storage room. I'd met Samuel Reed with his unblinking eyes. So what was he? I asked, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. I don't know what they are, exactly. But they're not human, and they're dangerous. Philip glanced toward the windows, where morning light was streaming in. They've been here for years. They follow patterns, which is how I figured out the rules. A chill ran through me as I realized what Philip was telling me. The strange events of the night weren't random. They were part of something larger, something that had been happening long before I arrived. And now I was caught in the middle of it. I looked down at the rules in my hand, feeling the weight of them in a way that had nothing to do with the paper they were written on. I held the paper in my trembling hands, scanning down to the second rule as Philip stood across from me at the counter. Morning light streamed through the front windows, casting long shadows across the store floor. Rule number 2, I read aloud, my voice still unsteady. Ignore the girl on the phone. Philip nodded gravely. That would be Reese Riley, or whatever's pretending to be her. He leaned forward, resting his forearms on the counter. She's not a real person in distress, Ricky. She's something else entirely. But she sounded so scared, I said, remembering the whispered pleas from the calls earlier that night. That's how it works. It mimics a young woman in trouble to get your sympathy. Philip's eyes held mine, his expression deadly serious. The real Reese Riley, if there ever was one, isn't calling you from the woods. This thing wants you to come outside looking for her. Or worse, to unlock the doors after hours to let her in. A chill ran up my back as I recalled how desperate I'd felt to help her, how close I'd come to breaking the rules without even knowing them. If she calls again, Philip continued, hang up immediately. Don't engage, don't ask questions, just end the call. The longer you stay on the line, the more it can influence your thinking, make you doubt yourself, make you want to help even when you know you shouldn't. I swallowed hard. Is that what happened to the employees who disappeared? Philip didn't answer directly. He just tapped the paper in my hands. Keep reading. I looked down at the third rule. Avoid the man who asks about the phone. Samuel Reed, Philip said, his voice dropping lower. He shows up every few weeks, always the same routine. Claims his cell phone died, asks to use the store phone. He's connected to the Reese calls somehow. He was just here this morning, I said, right before you arrived. Philip's eyes widened slightly. And you told him no? Good. He ran a hand through his salt and pepper hair. Whatever you do, if he comes back, don't let him use that phone. And try not to look him in the eyes for too long. There's something wrong about his gaze. I nodded, remembering Samuel's unblinking stare. What happens if someone lets him use the phone? Nothing good, Philip said flatly. Last employee who did that. Well, he wasn't the same afterward. Started acting strange, talking about voices telling him to unlock the back door at night. Found his car abandoned in the lot 2 days later. Never saw him again. My mouth went dry. I'd been right to lie about the phone being broken. What does he want? I asked. I think he's trying to call something in, Philip said. Or maybe call something out. Either way, nothing we want happening here. I looked back at the list, moving to the fourth rule. Stay away from the back room after 1 a.m. Philip's expression grew even more serious, the lines around his eyes deepening. This one's critical, Ricky. Whatever you heard in there this morning, that's just the beginning. After 1 a.m., something occupies that space. What kind of something? I asked, glancing toward the hallway where I'd heard the scratching and whispers. I don't know exactly, Philip admitted, lowering his voice despite us being alone in the store. But I've seen shadows moving under the door. Heard conversations between voices that shouldn't exist. Once, I made the mistake of cracking the door open around 3 a.m. He paused, and I noticed a slight tremble in his hand as he adjusted his jacket. What happened? I prompted. I saw... He stopped, seeming to reconsider his words. Let's just say I saw enough to know better than to ever do it again. The back room isn't just storage at night, Ricky. It's something else entirely. Something that doesn't belong in our world. I thought about the whispered name I'd heard, Reese, and how it connected to the phone calls. Are they all related somehow? Reese, Samuel, whatever's in the back room? I think so, Philip said. They appeared around the same time. They follow patterns. They work together somehow. I looked back at the rules, noticing there were more listed below. How many of these are there? 7 total, Philip said, and every single one of them is written in blood. Not literally, but he tapped his chest. People paid for these lessons. Good people who didn't make it home. The weight of what he was saying sank in. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was some kind of supernatural battleground, and I was now standing right in the middle of it. Should we call someone? I asked. There must be experts or authorities who deal with this kind of thing. Philip gave a bitter laugh. Who would you call exactly? The police? The church? I tried both. Police report went nowhere. They thought I was pulling a prank or having a breakdown. The priest I spoke to suggested I seek psychiatric help. I looked down at the rules again, trying to process everything. The scratching sounds from the storage room seemed to have stopped, but knowing what Philip had told me, the silence felt more threatening than reassuring. So, we're on our own, I said quietly. That's right, Philip confirmed. Just you, me, and these rules between us, and whatever's out there. Follow them to the letter, Ricky. Your life depends on it. I listened intently as Philip elaborated on the backroom rule. His eyes never left mine, making sure I understood the seriousness of what he was telling me. Those scratching sounds and voices you heard? That's exactly why we have the rule. They're warnings. When you get too close to that door after hours, they know you're there. They want you to come in. What happens if someone does go in? I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. Philip's face hardened. Under no circumstances do you enter that back room between 1 a.m. and sunrise. Period. He leaned closer across the counter. 3 employees broke that rule. They went in to investigate those sounds. None of them ever came back out. A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with the store's air conditioning. I looked down at the rules paper in my hands and noticed they were shaking. The black and white text blurred slightly as my eyes struggled to focus. You okay? Philip asked. Yeah, I lied, trying to steady my breathing. Just, processing all this. The morning light streaming through the windows felt like a cruel joke now. How could the world look so normal when everything I thought I knew about reality had just been turned upside down? Customers were pulling up to the gas pumps outside, going about their regular days, completely unaware of what lurked in this building after dark. How long has this been happening? I asked, folding the paper carefully and slipping it into my pocket. These things. When did they first show up? Philip sighed, rubbing his hand across his stubbled chin. 3 years ago. Started right after the previous owner, guy named Miller. Yeah, the same Miller from the sign. Had an accident on the property. What kind of accident? Official report said he fell off the roof while fixing a leak. Broke his neck. Philip's voice dropped lower. But I was here that day. Heard him screaming about something up there with him before he fell. Nobody believed me. I swallowed hard. And then what? These things just appeared. Not right away, but within a week strange stuff started happening. First it was just weird noises at night. Then the phone calls began. Then Samuel showed up. Philip glanced toward the windows. We've had 5 night shift workers quit after their first week. Couldn't handle it. 2 others. He trailed off. Disappeared. I finished for him. He nodded. That's when I started putting together the rules, trial and error. Painful trial and error. I thought about what he was saying. So you figured out these patterns by watching people make mistakes, Philip said bluntly. By seeing what happened when they helped the wrong person or answered the wrong call. By piecing together what the people who vanished had in common. He looked down at his hands. I should have figured it out sooner. Maybe I could have saved them. The weight of his words hung between us. Outside, a truck pulled away from the pumps, its engine growling as it rejoined the highway traffic. Why do you stay? I asked. If you know what's happening here, Why keep working as the manager? Philip's expression shifted, a mix of resignation and determination crossing his face. Someone has to. Someone has to warn the new hires. Someone has to maintain whatever barriers or rules keep these things confined to the truck stop grounds. What do you mean, confined? I've noticed they don't seem to leave the property. They stay within the boundaries of the lot, the building, maybe the tree line at most. They're tethered here somehow. He straightened up. And as long as the place stays open, as long as someone's here who knows the rules, they stay put. I considered this. The idea that Philip had been facing this alone for years, watching people disappear, trying to understand the rules that kept others safe. Have you ever tried to, I don't know, exorcise the place or something? I asked. A bitter laugh escaped him. You think I haven't tried everything? Priests, psychics, paranormal investigators? Nobody takes it seriously. They think it's a prank or that I'm losing my mind. He tapped the counter with his finger. All I know is that these rules work. They keep you alive. I glanced toward the hallway leading to the storage room. The scratching had stopped, but the silence felt even more threatening now that I knew what waited behind that door. So what now? I asked. Now? Philip checked his watch. Now we finish this shift. You go home, get some rest, and decide if you're coming back tomorrow night. He fixed me with a serious look. Nobody would blame you if you didn't. But even as he said it, I could see the hope in his eyes. Hope that I wouldn't leave him to face this alone again. I questioned why Philip hadn't simply shut down the truck stop or contacted authorities about the strange occurrences. The thought had been nagging at me since he'd explained the rules. If these things were so dangerous, why keep the place open at all? Why not just close this place down? I asked, leaning against the counter. Or get some real help from people who'd actually believe you. There's gotta be someone, FBI, paranormal experts, someone who deals with this kind of thing. Philip's eyes darkened. He rubbed his hand across his stubbled jaw, the lines in his face deepening. You think I didn't try? His voice came out rough, like he'd been holding this story inside too long. First thing I did was try to shut it down. About 2 years ago, after the second disappearance. Told the owner I was sick, locked the doors, put up closed for renovation signs. Thought maybe if nobody was here, whatever these things are would just fade away or move on. What happened? I asked, though the grim set of his mouth already told me it hadn't worked. I closed for a week. By day 3, I started getting calls from the Hendersons, family that owns the farm about 2 miles down the road. Philip's gaze drifted toward the windows, looking past them to something I couldn't see. Started with their animals acting strange, then noises in their barn at night, then their phone ringing with nobody on the other end. Sound familiar? A chill ran through me despite the morning sunlight streaming through the windows. By day 5, the police found all 4 of them dead in their house. Official reports said carbon monoxide poisoning from a faulty furnace. Philip's voice dropped lower. But the doors were all locked from the inside, and their faces. A neighbor who found them said their faces looked like they'd seen something so terrible they died from fear itself. Jesus, I whispered. Whatever's here. It was contained as long as the store stayed open. When I closed it down, it just found somewhere else to go. Somewhere with people who had no idea what they were dealing with. Philip shook his head. I reopened the next day. The phenomena came back here almost immediately, haven't tried closing since. I glanced toward the hallway leading to the storage room, half expecting to hear scratching again. The silence felt heavy. What about the police? The disappearances? They must have investigated. Philip let out a bitter laugh. Oh, they did. After the 3rd night shift worker vanished, leaving his car in the lot just like all the others, I finally got a detective to take it seriously. Guy named Mercer. He took statements, checked the security footage, even set up a stakeout in the parking lot. And his patrol car was found empty at 4 in the morning, radio still on, coffee still warm in the cup holder. No sign of a struggle. Philip's hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his jacket. They sent 2 more officers to investigate his disappearance. One of them walked toward the tree line with a flashlight. Never came back. The other one made it back to the station but quit the force the next day. Wouldn't talk about what he saw. I tried to process this. It seemed impossible, like something from a movie, not real life in rural Pennsylvania. After that, the department stopped sending people, ruled all the disappearances as likely voluntary departures, and closed the cases. Philip's eyes met mine. That's when I knew we were on our own. That's when I started figuring out the rules. There's got to be someone who could help, I insisted. Government agencies, specialists. You think I haven't tried every option? Philip cut me off, his voice sharp with frustration. I've called university paranormal research departments. They sent grad students who took readings, found nothing unusual, and left thinking I was crazy. I've reached out to private investigators who specialize in the unexplained. Most wouldn't come, and the ones who did either saw nothing or left in a hurry without explanation. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. The only thing that works is following the rules and keeping this place running. For whatever reason, as long as we're open, as long as someone's here who knows what to do and what not to do, these things stay contained to this property. They don't spread to the town or the farms nearby. I looked down at the folded paper in my hands, the rules that people had died to create. My hands were shaking, but not just from fear anymore. Something else was taking root inside me, a feeling I hadn't expected. Responsibility. I'd taken this job because I needed money after losing my warehouse position in Pittsburgh. It paid well for night shift work, and I'd been desperate. But now I understood it was something else entirely. Philip had stayed here for years, facing these things night after night, not just for a paycheck, but because walking away meant innocent people might die. Could I really turn my back on that? Just walk away and leave Philip alone with whatever lurked in the darkness here? The job still offered good pay, and I still needed the money. My rent wasn't going to pay itself. But that suddenly seemed secondary to what Philip had been doing all this time, standing guard at a supernatural boundary, keeping whatever was here from spreading further. I folded the rules carefully and tucked them into my pocket. My hand steadied as I made my decision. I'll be back for my next shift, I told him, meeting his eyes, and I'll follow every rule, every single one. The relief that washed across Philip's face was immediate and profound. His shoulders relaxed slightly, and he nodded, a new respect visible in his expression. 3 nights a week, he said. That's your schedule. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. I'll cover the other 4. That's how we've always done it. Split the burden so no one person has to face it every night. Okay, I agreed. 3 nights a week. Something about saying it out loud made it real. I was committing to this, to facing whatever called itself Reese Riley on the phone, to avoiding Samuel Reed and his unblinking eyes, to never opening the storage room after 1 in the morning. Get some rest today, Philip said. You'll need it. I nodded, feeling the weight of the folded paper in my pocket. Rules written in blood, Philip had said. Rules that would keep me alive if I followed them exactly. I will, I promised, though I wasn't sure how much sleep would come after everything I'd learned. But I'd try. Because in less than 24 hours, I'd be back here, standing guard against things I didn't understand but had somehow become my responsibility. I drove home in the morning sunlight, reflecting on how drastically my life had changed in a single night. The bright rays streaming through my windshield seemed almost surreal after the darkness I'd experienced at Miller's truck stop. Just yesterday, I'd been desperate for any job after losing my warehouse position in Pittsburgh. Now I understood I wasn't just a cashier. I was something else entirely. My hands gripped the steering wheel tightly as I replayed Philip's revelations in my mind. The supernatural entities at the truck stop weren't just strange occurrences or hallucinations. They were real threats that had already claimed lives. Trevor Morrison's abandoned car, with the wallet still sitting on the passenger seat. The desperate phone calls from a girl named Reese who didn't exist. Samuel Reed, with his unblinking eyes and long fingers. The scratching sounds from behind the storage room door. I had taken a simple job at a truck stop and found myself now serving as a guardian against supernatural forces that threatened innocent people. The weight of this responsibility pressed down on me as I drove. Philip had been carrying this burden alone for so long, developing the rules through trial and error, watching people disappear and knowing exactly what happened to them. The rules would keep me alive. That much was clear. Philip had survived by creating and following them meticulously, and my presence would help Philip maintain the containment that protected the surrounding community. I thought about the Henderson family, all 4 of them dead in their locked house when Philip had tried to close the truck stop, their faces frozen in terror according to the neighbor, though officially ruled as carbon monoxide poisoning. Traffic was light this morning, and I barely noticed the other cars as I drove. My mind was too occupied with everything I'd learned. The entities couldn't leave the property unless the truck stop closed. They were tethered there somehow, and as long as the place stayed open with someone who knew the rules, they remained contained. I pulled into my apartment complex parking lot, exhausted but resolute. My body felt heavy as I turned off the engine. I hadn't realized how tired I was until this moment. The adrenaline that had kept me alert during Philip's explanations was fading, leaving me drained. Before getting out of the car, I reached into my pocket and unfolded the rules paper. I checked the folded rules once more, carefully reading each one in the morning light filtering through my windshield. Rule 1, do not help anyone outside the store. Rule 2, ignore the girl on the phone. Rule 3, avoid the man who asks about the phone. Rule 4, stay away from the back room after 1 a.m. There were 3 more rules I hadn't read yet. I studied them now. Rule 5, if you hear your name called from outside, do not respond or look. Rule 6, never stay in the bathroom longer than 5 minutes. Rule 7, if you see someone you recognize who shouldn't be there, do not acknowledge them. I read through the list several times, carefully memorizing each one. These 7 rules were my lifeline. Breaking any of them could mean disappearing like the others, leaving behind nothing but an empty car in the parking lot or vanishing without a trace like Detective Mercer. I knew the next shift would be even more challenging now that I understood what was really happening at Miller's truck stop. Ignorance might have been blissful during my first night, but knowledge would keep me alive during the next one. I had to be prepared for Trevor, Reese, Samuel, or whatever lurked in the storage room after hours. I folded the paper carefully and returned it to my pocket before grabbing my keys and getting out of the car. The walk to my apartment felt longer than usual, my legs heavy with fatigue. When I finally reached my door, I fumbled with the key, my hands less steady than I would have liked. Once inside, I headed straight for my bedroom. I needed sleep before returning to face the night shift again. I set multiple alarms on my phone to ensure I would be well rested before returning to face whatever waited in the darkness. I couldn't afford to oversleep or arrive late. Philip was counting on me, and so were the people in the surrounding area who had no idea what was being contained at that ordinary-looking truck stop. As I lay down, still fully dressed, I stared at the ceiling and thought about how I had survived my first night, and I was determined to survive many more. The rules would protect me as long as I followed them without exception. No matter what I saw or heard, no matter how convincing Trevor or Reese might be, no matter how normal Samuel might appear, I would remember what Philip had told me. My eyes grew heavy as exhaustion overcame my racing thoughts. Before sleep claimed me, I silently repeated the 7 rules once more, committing them to memory. They were my shield against whatever waited for me when I returned to Miller's truck stop.